If you have ever switched to decaf coffee because you were trying to cut back on caffeine, you might be surprised to find out that decaf is not actually caffeine-free. Most people assume that decaf means zero caffeine, which is a completely reasonable assumption given the name. But the reality is more nuanced than that, and understanding it can genuinely change how you think about decaf coffee and when it makes sense to drink it. In this video, we are going to cover exactly what decaf coffee is, how the caffeine is removed, how much caffeine actually remains in a typical cup, whether decaf tastes different from regular coffee, and who decaf is actually a good choice for. Decaf coffee is regular coffee that has gone through an additional processing step to remove most of its caffeine content before roasting. The coffee starts as green, unroasted beans, exactly the same as any other coffee, and at some point during processing, the caffeine is extracted from those beans using one of several different methods. The resulting beans still look, smell, and behave very similarly to regular coffee beans. They can be roasted light, medium, or dark. They can be ground for espresso, pour-over, French press, or any other brewing method. They can come from any origin in the world. The only meaningful structural difference between a decaf bean and a regular bean is that most of the caffeine has been removed. Everything else about how decaf coffee is grown, processed, and roasted is essentially the same. There are several different methods used to remove caffeine from coffee, and the method matters because it affects not just how much caffeine is removed, but also how it affects the flavor of the final cup. The most common method used commercially is the solvent-based process, where green coffee beans are soaked in hot water and then treated with a chemical solvent, either methylene chloride or ethyl acetate, that selectively bonds with caffeine molecules and draws them out of the beans. The beans are then rinsed to remove the solvent and dried. A variation of this method, called the Swiss water process, uses no chemical solvents at all. Instead, green beans are soaked in a special solution called green coffee extract that is saturated with all the flavor compounds found in coffee but contains no caffeine. Because the extract is already full of flavor compounds, it draws out only the caffeine from the new beans, leaving the flavor intact. The Swiss water process is popular with specialty coffee roasters and is certified organic. A third method, called the supercritical carbon dioxide process, uses pressurized carbon dioxide to selectively extract caffeine, which is considered the most precise and flavor-preserving method available, but is also the most expensive. Each method removes the majority of caffeine, but none of them removes it all. This is the part that surprises most people. Decaf coffee is not caffeine-free. In most countries, the regulations around decaf labeling require that at least 97% of the original caffeine content is removed, which means up to 3% can legally remain. In practice, this translates to a measurable amount of caffeine in every cup of decaf. A typical 8-ounce cup of decaf coffee contains somewhere between 2 and 15 milligrams of caffeine, depending on the beans, the decaffeination method, the roast level, and the brewing method used. To put that in context, a standard cup of regular coffee contains roughly 80 to 150 milligrams of caffeine. So a cup of decaf has significantly less caffeine than regular coffee, but it is not zero. For most people, this residual caffeine is completely inconsequential and will have no noticeable effect. But for people who are highly sensitive to caffeine, who have been advised by a doctor to avoid caffeine entirely, or who drink multiple cups of decaf throughout the day, that residual amount can add up to a meaningful total by the end of the day. One of the most common concerns people have about switching to decaf is whether it will taste different from regular coffee. The honest answer is that decaf coffee can taste slightly different, and for a long time, decaf had a reputation for being flat, thin, or slightly chemical in flavor. This reputation was largely earned by lower-quality decaf products made using older, solvent-based processes that did strip some flavor compounds along with the caffeine. However, decaf coffee has improved significantly in recent years. particularly as specialty coffee roasters have started paying more attention to sourcing high-quality green beans and using gentler decaffeination methods like the Swiss water process or carbon dioxide extraction. A well-sourced and well-roasted decaf coffee from a quality roaster can taste remarkably close to its caffeinated equivalent, with complex flavors, good body, and pleasant aroma. The gap between good decaf and good regular coffee is much smaller today than it was a decade ago, and many people who try a high-quality decaf for the first time are genuinely surprised by how good it can be. Understanding why people choose decaf helps clarify who it is actually designed for. The most common reason is caffeine sensitivity. Some people experience anxiety, jitteriness, heart palpitations, or disrupted sleep from caffeine, and find that reducing or eliminating it makes a significant difference to how they feel. For these people, decaf allows them to enjoy the ritual and flavor of coffee without the physiological effects of caffeine. Pregnancy is another common reason. Many healthcare providers recommend that pregnant women limit their caffeine intake significantly, and decaf is an easy way to maintain the coffee habit while staying within those limits. Some people simply want to drink coffee later in the day without it affecting their sleep, and decaf solves that problem neatly. Others have medical conditions like acid reflux, heart arrhythmias, or anxiety disorders where caffeine is specifically contraindicated. And some people genuinely just prefer the taste of coffee without the stimulant effect, which is a completely valid reason on its own. A question that often comes up alongside the caffeine conversation is whether decaf coffee is actually healthy. The short answer is that decaf coffee retains most of the beneficial compounds found in regular coffee, including antioxidants and polyphenols, which are associated with various health benefits. Studies on decaf coffee suggest that it shares many of the same general health associations as regular coffee, including potential benefits for liver health, cognitive function, and reduced risk of certain diseases, without the caffeine-related effects. The concern that sometimes arises is around the chemical solvents used in some decaffeination processes. While traces of solvent can remain on the beans after processing, the amounts are well within safety limits set by regulatory bodies and are considered safe for consumption by food safety agencies in most countries. If this is a concern for you personally, choosing decaf made with the Swiss water process or carbon dioxide extraction eliminates any solvent exposure entirely. Not all decaf coffee is created equal, and choosing a good one makes a significant difference to the overall experience. The most important thing to look for is a roast date on the bag. Freshness matters for decaf just as much as it does for regular coffee, and decaf from a bag with no roast date has likely been sitting on a shelf for long enough that the flavor has already started to fade. Look for decaf from specialty roasters who treat their decaf offering with the same seriousness as the rest of their range. Pay attention to the decaffeination method listed on the packaging. Swiss water process and carbon dioxide process decafs tend to preserve more of the original flavor compounds and are worth seeking out over cheaper, solvent-processed alternatives. Look for single-origin decafs or decafs with specific tasting notes on the bag, which signal that the roaster has genuinely thought about flavor rather than treating decaf as a low-priority product for people who have no other choice. And once you have a good decaf, brew it with the same care and attention you would give any other coffee. Use the correct grind size for your brewing method, use the right water temperature, and give it the same respect you would give a bag of regular coffee you paid good money for. The difference between a well-brewed quality decaf and a carelessly brewed cheap decaf is enormous, and most people who say they dislike decaf have simply never had a good one prepared well. Decaf coffee is not caffeine-free, but for most people, the small amount that remains is nothing to worry about. What it is a genuinely good option for anyone who loves coffee but needs or wants to reduce their caffeine intake. And with the quality of specialty decaf improving steadily over the last few years, There has genuinely never been a better time to explore what a well-made decaf actually tastes like. For more guides on everything coffee, from brewing methods to bean selection to the science behind your cup, visit us at 11coffees.com. If this video helped clear things up, give it a like and subscribe for more. And let us know in the comments whether you drink decaf and what made you switch to it.